Hi there, Gary. This is a video to you in Mendham. We haven't spoken for a while, so I just want to say before we start how much I enjoy talking to you. You're a friend of mine, Gary. So I'll just say that to start with, and then we'll, resume normal service as we go on. But I wanted to talk about determinism again. Really, just picking up on the comment that I left on your video, or that you left on my, whatever it was. Anyway, that little comment exchange we had about determinism, where I was trying to draw a distinction between things that are determined, or basically just saying that determinism, for me at least, is such a human concept, and I'm still trying to get to grips with what I mean by that, and I haven't quite got it. So I don't know. See how far I get. But I think when we are talking about determinism, we tend to be talking about, I think, what's going on inside our heads, consciously or unconsciously, is really simple human scale systems, and that's revealed in the examples. It's always snooker balls hitting one another, or dominoes falling, that kind of thing, isn't it? That's always the examples that are always brought forward. And so we make gestures towards saying that, yeah, the brain is determined, and I would agree with you completely, it is. But it doesn't feel like that, it doesn't feel like that, and unless you get people where they feel, and it's never quite convincing, is it? So it's something to do with that. And I think that word determined, for all kinds of reasons, does the wrong kind of thing. And it's partly what you're saying about language. You say language is broke. I don't think it's broken, I just think it's not fit for the purpose we're trying to use it. To my way of thinking, language is evolved to help people stop bumping into the furniture, the same way that thinking did. And here we are trying to express abstract concepts and moral concepts, and talk about subjunctive realities and pasts and futures that do or do not exist, and subatommic particles and all this kind of stuff. We're trying to do stuff with it that we can't do, really. We're trying to fix the Large Hadron Collider with a spanner. So I think it's to do with that. I don't think it's broken, I think it's just inadequate. But that inadequacy, I think, does cause problems, and one of the problems is that the words like determined are understood in terms of human scale systems, when the universe is not a human scale system, and reality isn't a human scale system, and different things happen, I think. I don't think it's weird, well, it is weird, but I don't think I'm not making any gestures towards quantum weirdness or anything like that. It's really just a question of about how our imagination gets boggled at certain scales, I think. Anyway, the one I wanted to talk about really was to do with determinism in games, and understanding games, because this is the analogy I'm trying to work my way through right now, see if it'll help me understand it a bit better. Because when I think about, as I say, determinism, I tend to think of it in terms of linear systems, like rows of dominoes falling over. But if I think of it in terms of games, I think of it a bit differently. Because if you take a game, something like noughts and crosses, what you would call tic-tac-toe, it's got 2 counters, 3 or 4 different rules, 9 squares, and I read on Tinternet that there's something like 250,000 different games that can be played with tic-tac-toe. And some of them are symmetries, so that's a bit deceptive, but even so, there's hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands certainly, of different possible games that can be played out. When I was thinking about that got me thinking about multiple realities, but I don't want to go there even, because that's not terribly interesting or useful, I don't think. So, but either way, I think that's the kind of vista that opens out, isn't it, when we think about non-determination. Oh God, all the games that could be played. But let's just say there's one game, there's only one game possible. How do you know which of the 255,000 it is, or whatever? It's that kind of thing. And then that got me on to thinking about the difference between knowing the rules of a game and knowing the game. Because look, if you probably played it when you were a kid, but when you first start playing tic-tac-toe with your older brother or your older sister, something like that, typically you lose the first few games until you kind of get the hang of it. And then if the person you're playing against is not too experienced, you will win a few more and they will start losing a few. But if the person you're playing against has been playing for a while, they will never lose, because if you know tic-tac-toe, once you know the game, as opposed to just knowing the rules, you never lose. You can always hold every game to a draw. So as I say, if you're playing against your older brother, your older sister, after a while you can start holding a few games to draws, but you'll never win. but you lose less. And then when you get really good yourself, you know the game. Every game that you play ends in a draw. That's kind of how that works, because you know the game. The game isn't, and determine it. You know, that knowing of the game, knowing how it plays out, knowing how it ends, isn't determined in quite the same way that knowing how each move plays out, or knowing the rules. You know, it's a different kind of knowing, I think. And that's just, as I say, a really simple game. If you take it to chess, I mean, fuck knows how many possible games of chess there are, but it is finite for sure. But again, there's only, what there is, 32 pieces, 64 squares, and again a couple of dozen rules, and you know, and nobody ever gets that game. I mean, grandmasters is the best you can get, and they almost get the game, but even they don't play every, you know, not every game plays at ends a stalemate or a Zugzwang, I think it's called. Not you know, they make mistakes. That's, I guess, the joy and the beauty of that game. It plays right at the edge of human knowing, of being able to know the game. So the game feels not determined, but just kind of knowable. And it's right on the edge of that, and just slightly beyond it. So no one can quite grasp the whole game to the point where they're able to every single time either win or hold it to a draw. And again, as I say, that's a relatively simple game in universal standards. The universe is quite big, and you know, I don't know how many counters there are, however many atomic particles there are, but they're not only counters, are they? However many possible elements there are, however many molecules there are, combinations, or all these other bits, you know, these are the counters. I don't know how many laws and rules there are. I don't know what the equivalent of the squares on a chessboard would be, but you know, quite a few, I would guess. So it's a game that's being played out in however many 11 dimensions, let's say, with, as near as damn it, an infinite number of different counters, with rules that in all likelihood are probably evolving as the game goes on. It's a game which contains games inside itself, so each atom is a kind of game. And the whole atom acts as a counter in a large molecular game, and each molecule acts as a counter in a large kind of chemical game, and each chemical acts as a counter in a biological game, and so the whole thing goes up. And all these games are intersecting. So it's never going to feel like, oh, I know the game, I can hold this game to a draw every time. So it's never going to feel kind of satisfying in the way, not satisfying, but it's never going to kind of feel known in the way that even something as simple as noughts and crosses or tic-tac-toe is known. And I think it's that kind of determinism that we would want to get a sense of, I think. You know, having established the initial starting conditions and the rules by which the game is played still doesn't do the whole thing for you, I don't think. And I'm not disputing determinism in that kind of reduced sense that I would want to use the term, stripped of any kind of human engagement, stripped of any of that kind of stuff. But as I say, human language and human thought just isn't up for it, I don't think. It's not fit for purpose. So yeah, we just keep falling into that trap of thinking we're playing tic-tac-toe, and we're not. We're playing 11-dimensional universal chess, and most of the pieces are hidden from us. Anyway, if I won't see you, but anyway, if I don't hear you before Christmas, Gary, have a happy Christmas. It's been a nice year talking to you, and if ever this is one of the tests that someone told me about friendship. So you can a friend is a person who, when you get a phone call from them in the middle of the night and they say, I've got a body in the back of my car, can you help me bury it? Without thinking, you say yes. Anyway, if you ever want some help with a guy with a shovel, I'm your man. Speak to you soon. Bye.